let's start real basic, actually. Like, so like when we're young, we don't have the power to say things with words because we literally don't have words yet. We have a couple as we're getting older, and so when we don't have words to express ourselves and we're children, we just yell and cry. That's how the mom recognizes, hey, this thing needs my attention. This baby needs my attention. You know, it cried. It's moving. You know, and so like even though it may not recognize in its infancy, hey, this is my power, it kind of does. Because when something's not right, it yells. And also people who have children know that if you coddle the yell too early, if you don't let kids kind of yell themselves out, then they'll always know that if they simply yell, that people will come running, and the power held within that. See? Yeah. Like power is in like political power, or like, you know, power to make a change in your life, or, you know, different forms of power in more of like a personal way. You know,
power in relationships.
Sure. I mean, I guess the best way to really talk about that is to call it like the dynamics of power, like power dynamics.
Yeah.
So we have like
flow.
a whole bunch of, there's so many different types of power. We could spend forever just naming them off. You know.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of destigmatize our understandings of power and power dynamics so that we can actually have a healthy relationship, both in understanding our own power as well as understanding when power is being used against us, either in a positive or a negative way, you know? Because it's good to know, hey, when I do this thing, it gives me more power in my own life to make changes and be my own agent and have agency within my own life to then facilitate change. See? Okay. So without understanding your own power, without understanding your own abilities, because any ability that you have is innately a power, because you're taking something from within yourself and you're authoring it outside of yourself through action.
Yes.
Whether you're saying words, or whether you're physically or whether you're physically manifesting like a form of a feeling like, oh, I'm angry, rah, 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 and you're yelling or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, whatever that is, that's still a power. You have now changed the dynamic of anybody involved in that exchange, and you've changed it to a way to however you were directing that through your yelling. We influence ourselves as well as other people, and when we do that, we're actually either enabling them or to do something that they may not have previously thought that they, you know, had the ability to do. Like if you're hanging out with your buddy, let's say, and you guys are like getting ready to you know, I don't know, do a foot race with someone else. I don't know. I know I'm being vague here, but like, and so you're like hyping your bro, you know, you're giving your dude some sauce. You're like, yeah, man, you can do this. Because before he was like, oh man, I don't know, man, this is going to be a really hard race, man. I'm like sweating it. And you're like, no, man, you got this. Cute. You've been training hard. You know what I mean? You got this, man. You got this. And so then they get juiced, and you've actually, you know, you've given them a little extra influence.
I want to do this.
So you've given them some boost in their own power to then enable them to maybe push a little bit harder in a foot race. So there are ways that we can influence people in a positive way. There's also ways that obviously people are using their influence in a negative way.
Just bad people everywhere. Using their power for nefarious means.
Yeah, and we all know this. And this is actually another bit. This is kind of why I wanted to discuss this, is because generally when we hear power or we hear control, there's this negative connotation, and I feel like that actually pulls our power and ability a little bit further away from us, because we're almost afraid to use power because of the way that we see power used against other people. A lot of people in the 80s, man, kids were disenfranchised. Nobody wanted to vote. This is a broken system. So then like Ice-T like joined up with like MTV, and they threw out Rock the Vote. And they had massive influence on voting polls.
Wow.
That time. Like a ton of people showed up that previously weren't bothered, could not be asked to vote. And yet these people launch this campaign and massively influence votes. And when they massively influence votes, you're talking about massively influencing our actual laws, and that's where power and influence really combine.
Real power.
Really combine into what we would, into something more.
We utilize money to influence the engine of politics. And to do this, we create organizations who hold this money, hold this power, and then
AKA super PACs.
Yeah, and then push towards a certain idea, agenda, idealism, whatever it is. And but then here's the thing: like, people forget about it. They're like, yeah, we did that, and then they achieve it. They achieve the thing that they're trying to do. But the problem is that organization still exists.
Yeah,
it's still an engine.
It's still pushing towards,
and it has political power.
Correct. So they want to be able to influence the market and influence politics in their favor. And so when they start making motions towards that, then the corresponding PACs, the corresponding lobbyists, then see that and then are like, hey, if you continue on down this road, we will give you more money. And more money, as we know, gives you more ability to get seen by people, gives you more time for ad space, gives you more ability to reach out so you can spread more of your message, which then gives you more influence, which then can lead to more power, so on and so on. And that's how the political machine drives. So setting our alarm in the morning, that's a power. It's a power to wake up. Before, you were just going to sleep in, and if you don't set an alarm, you don't have the power to know that you will be up when that alarm goes off.
Okay.
So the first bit of power to securing our own financial security would be learning how to exercise our ability to get up and go to bed at specific times so that our circadian rhythm can fall into a proper flow. See? But if we don't recognize that this is within our power, this is within our wheelhouse to change, what we'll do is we'll be like, oh, dang old work making me get up early. And then on the weekends, you're like, oh, it's my weekend. I'm going to stay up late and sleep in. That'll show them.
That's my favorite.
Right? It is for a lot of people. Whereas if you take that power away from the big bad, wolf of consumer economy driving us to having to, oh yeah, dang them for making us, pay taxes and work for a living, but the reality is a little bit, in my opinion, reality is a little bit more in the realm of once we recognize that we want to be up and active and awake in time to go to work, you set your alarm as a crutch. And you set your alarm 7 days a week, and you follow through with waking up and going to sleep at the same time every single night, because waking up at the same time every morning,
at least waking up,
will cycle your sleep around to where you'll really want to start going to bed closer to 6 to 8 hours before you want to wake up. See? And that's going to ensure your sleep cycle to be far more conductive to solid REM sleep every night. Yeah. Instead of attempting to go to sleep on a Sunday night after being up for 2 nights at 2 o'clock in the morning, but now you got to get up at 6 the next. You're like, oh, well, I'm going to try and get to bed early on a Sunday night. And you just lay there for 4, 6, 8 hours tossing and turning. And then by the time it actually get to sleep, it's a fitful, annoyed half sleep that you don't even enter into REM. See? So therefore, you take your power back away from this entity of your own making, give it to yourself, and start ascribing your own changes to your life. And then you start to claw back your power, and then you start to realize, oh my God, I'm naturally waking up without an alarm. I'm naturally going to sleep 6 to 8 hours before I know my alarm's going to go off. And there's no anxiety, there's no frustration, and sleep simply comes and goes suddenly. This coming from someone who suffered from years of insomnia before I recognized that I had to I gave myself insomnia. No medical, like with medical, I go to the doctors, I'm like, yeah, I'm up all night, I can't sleep. They're like, oh yeah, you got insomnia. Like, oh, I guess. They're not wrong, but in reality land, no amount of sleeping pills that they give is ever going to re-regulate myself unless I start realizing that human beings are not raised or born to work 5 days a week and then sleep sleep in and relax for 2 days. That's nonsensical. The reality of us being a creature on the earth means that a work week means nothing to us. A weekend is not real. This is a conceived notion that we put into place and then attribute power to its own paradigm.